Oh, starting with the big one. Well, I don't think that I really knew what my why was in the very beginning. In fact, for the first couple of years, I thought, this is odd that I would be building websites for people or doing copywriting. And I didn't really understand why all of this opportunity had fallen into my lap. And it was maybe 2 to 5 years into having NGNG, it's sort of the first wave of it hit me. How cool is it that I get to create so much more influence and impact in the world through my clients? That I didn't have to be the one to author the book or create the podcast or speak on the stages. I'm actually having a far greater impact by influencing the influencers. And I was perfectly satisfied with that for a very long time. And then all of a sudden, like this next wave, probably from deeper introspection hit, where I realized that the deeper root of that is that I am all about creating human, meaningful connection. And then I kind of like got that hit. And I thought, well, why is that? So then I think that created more introspection and like really going back and looking at my story and doing some of that shadow work and some of that natural maturing into adulthood. And, now what's really exciting to me is taking this word influencer and redefining it, because so many times in calls day to day, people say, I hate marketing, I hate social media, I hate influencers. Yet influencer, in my opinion, is an opportunity to impact for greater good. So that is what they want to do. It's just that influencers had a bad name. So the why has evolved, as you can see, but it's always been about making the world a better place through human connection and being the person you would be proud to be, being the leader. Oh, these are huge questions. I would say first and foremost, Clay. I mean, my gosh, I always knew that I wanted to have kids. And in my 20s, I knew I was going to have a boy and a girl. Don't you love dreaming as a kid? And then when I had Clay, and by the way, I had some complications leading into that. So I actually had a miscarriage. Then I had an ectopic pregnancy, which was pretty gnarly. And then when I tried again, it was kind of considered a higher risk pregnancy. And that's when I was pregnant with Clay. Literally, this kid checked all of my boxes. He was my dream child. We had such an outrageous connection. And honestly, I felt so fulfilled and satisfied with Clay that I didn't keep trying to have children. And so I would say that Clay is definitely a huge accomplishment. Something else that I feel is a huge accomplishment would be Inc. 5000, not because of why you might think. It actually, to me, represents how much influence and impact we've had. So it was never about the number for me, the number of revenue, the number of followers. Like, I just want to know that I am positively shaping industries, and Inc. 5000 did that. And so I proudly display it back there to remind me to keep trying my hardest and growing my hardest. So that was a really, really big one. And the last one that comes up, Courtney, is facing my greatest fears. And that's something that I did when I was, in my 39th year here. I faced all of my deepest and scariest fears, and I learned a lot about myself. And I think when you put yourself in the fire of life, that's sort of when the phoenix rises up. And that is what I did. So now as I look ahead into the next decade, the phoenix is risen, and we are going full strong into the playground of our full potential. Wow, what an awesome question. Honestly, what comes up for me is I want parents to know that you can have and do it all. That, I think, is a really important message to me right now as a single mom. And I just closed on my second house. So I've got my house in the city and I have a cabin in the woods. Both are mine 100%. And I run a full-time, very successful business that is profitable with a team that is like the most unbelievable magic, like collaboration of humans I've ever experienced, and healthy friendships and family relationships outside of that. And so, you know what? It is so stretching every single day. I'm not here to say, oh, it's easy. I just sit back and drink pina coladas and it all works out. That's not it at all. But if you have the right heart and you are aligned in your values and the right intentionality, you know what your priorities are, including self-care, it's all possible. And to be that leader for my team and for my clients and for family in a day when everybody is so freaked out, they're so overwhelmed, filled with anxiety, overcommitting, ruining their health, including their mental health, their emotional health, everything is haywire. I feel like being a woman who practices what she preaches, I do that work, then all of these things do work in harmony. And to be a leader like that, I think it all stemmed from Clay, because if I had never had Clay, I couldn't have said any of this. So that's my answer. That's how it all came to be. That's a really good question. In fact, a lot of clients ask me this pretty regularly because people see that I'm just always on the go. And how am I able to do so much in such a constrained period of time? You know that phrase, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And I actually really believe that to be true. A lot of people don't actually know just how full life is for me. You know, I've got a custody situation with Clay where, I have him for 3 days and then I don't have him for 3 days, but that's a 6-day schedule in a 7-day world. The reason for that is that my ex-husband, who we very consciously co-parent Clay, we're very close. Well, he's a fireman. So when he is working at the fire station, I have Clay. And when he's home, he has Clay. But how that interacts with work means that my schedule is always shifting around. And so some days, I'm full-blown CEO. I've got 14 back-to-back calls and I'm working into the evening, responding to 50 emails, keeping 60 client projects moving forward, responsible for many roles within our multi-million-dollar company. And I love every minute of it. And then when I have Clay, well, Clay only goes to school 3 hours a day. So I get 2.5 hours to work those days during the week when everybody else is full time. But then I pick him up and I'm dedicated to Clay that day. So mom brain comes in. I'm very hands-on with teaching and learning. And yet, being a single mom, I've got the laundry, the laundry. I've got the cooking. I've got the errands. I've got the school projects and the homework and all the things and the sports. And it's just full. So what I would say my answer to how I do all of this is, number one, schedule. You got to schedule everything. You have to be super duper organized. You have to want to do it all. And there are a lot of people in the world that they just don't want to. And so they don't, right? But I actually want to check all of the boxes. It makes me feel like I'm living my full potential. So I play all out every single day, whether I have Clay or I'm working or something else is happening. I would say being fully present in a moment like this moment. There's nothing else happening in this moment for me except this interview conversation, which I am loving every minute of. And I think there's something about being fully hyper present that almost bends time a little bit. I have a very interesting experience of how time flies. So somehow it all gets done. Having an incredible support system around me, my team has my back. They're my bodyguards. My assistant has my back. She's my bodyguard. I also have support outside. I have people that can come help me at the house or with certain errands or projects. And so I need a lot of help in order to have the influence that I have and get everything done and get it done really well. So there's probably a lot of reasons. The last I would say is I eat well most of the time. I get a lot of sleep. I get 8 hours of sleep a night pretty much religiously. I have this morning routine that activates my body. I do yoga. I have like a connection, almost sort of meditation experience. I listen to music to hype me up. I've got my coffee routine dialed in. I drink tons of water throughout the day. I just know that the power plant doesn't have energy. It generates energy. And so you've got to be a person that is focused on that generation and that renewal, and then everything is possible. Wow.
Right? That's tough.
There was a hot minute that I would have said Matthew McConaughey, and the girls on the team will laugh and they know exactly what I'm talking about. But honestly, I kind of am vibing a Brene Brown vibe right now. Like, I love that woman and what she stands for. And especially, shifting into this area of shame and what it was like when she experienced cancel culture, and just the personal, deep dive that she experienced. I related very, very closely to her sort of coming out of sabbatical podcast episode. And it was very emotional and it was very raw. And I related to her so much because in the 2 years, since COVID, where she released this, she and I had experienced some similar pains. And so I would just say, like, I just respect her. I appreciate her and her courage. So I think that would be a blast. And also, like, I'm a big Mel Robbins fan too. So there's all sorts of fun people that we will be working with in the future. So there. Wow. Well, I have to say, from day one, it was team first. Genuinely. This comes from my own personal experience where prior to NGNG, I had worked in a marketing firm. And when I started, they promised me $40 an hour. And back then, $40 an hour to a 20-year-old punk like me was a lot of money. Okay. So I was all in for the opportunity, and I was going to be the primary project manager that was in charge of all of our clients and moving things forward to completion. Well, when I actually onboarded, the owner said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm having like a cash crunch this month. Can I start you at 20? I think it was 23 an hour. And next month I'll bump you up to 40." And I said, "Yeah, no big deal," because I was just ignorant back then. I didn't think anything of it. Well, 2.5 years later, I was making 26 an hour. And during that time, I had taken on such a large capacity for that company. I was doing sales, onboarding, project management, responsible for creative, execution, launch, marketing strategies, growing businesses. I mean, I was like running that organization. And I hadn't really made much of a pay increase. And there were some weeks where I'm like, "Hey, where's my paycheck?" And, I just started to feel like really taken advantage of. And I know that his heart was in a good place, but still. When I started NGNG, I thought, okay, hold up. I am paying my team every single week. And by the way, it costs me more to pay people weekly as opposed to biweekly. Fun fact. I don't care. It's such a delight to pay my team every single week because that's what I would want. I would want to get a weekly paycheck. And then in terms of setting hours, I don't want to have to dictate, like, you must be in your seat at this time and end at this time, and you're not allowed to do these other things. Listen, I want to work with mature adults that are professional and can have ownership of their work. So I want to give my team freedom. You want to go work at a coffee shop? Go have fun. You want to take an hour off to go on a walk? Good. God bless you. See you later. I don't micromanage to that degree because I trust my team and we have each other's backs in that way. So as you can see, a lot of my leadership is honestly based on that rule: treat others the way you would want to be treated. And so it's not like I have a master's degree in business leadership. I just care about people and I want them to have a good experience. And so that's kind of always been steady and consistent. But to answer the question, I would say I've just stacked on top of that foundation with additional strategies and learnings through my clients or books or podcasts. And I can't think of anything that's super noteworthy at the moment, but I think it's just treat people well and they will treat you well. Big concept. Gosh, the most important book that I have read, that is super tough because it depends on, like the topic or the category, right? But the first book that immediately came to mind, so I'll speak to that one as a favorite, and it is The Greatest Miracle in the World by Og Mandino. And it's a short little fable of a book, but toward the back of the book, there's a chapter called The God Memorandum. Ugh, Just even saying it out loud, it makes me want to cry. But the God memorandum, in fact, you can even Google the God memorandum and a PDF will come up that you can read it without buying the book. And I think it is one of the most majestic pieces I've ever read. It just cuts you right to the core. It speaks so in such a raw way to your soul. It is undeniable truth. And it just reminds you of your own power and your own uniqueness. And it just helps you rise up to the occasion of your life. And it is so beautiful. So that can apply to anybody, anywhere, anytime. I have absolutely no idea. I love that we think we can make this plan and vision, and life has its own ideas. So I can tell you what I'm working on. And if life will let me see this through, that would be really cool. But I'm really excited right now. I'm writing a book about how to launch your book, and it's going to get traditionally published. So it's probably going to come out in about 1.5 years. This is a detour from the book that I've sort of been like wrestling with for years about elevating every experience, which is really about human connection. There are new experiences, new parts of myself that are coming out that's going to make that book amazing in all ways, but I'm not quite ready to write it. So that's going to be book number 2. And the book before that is definitely going to be this one about how to launch your book, because your book is such a huge opportunity to have the life that you want, the lifestyle you want, to make the impact that you want, to make the money that you want. I think people drastically underestimate the power of that book. It can absolutely be leveraged in so many outrageously amazing ways. So anyway, I want other authors to understand how to launch properly so that they can really experience that entrepreneurial freedom that they're grasping for, and they're looking for it in all of these other areas. But I believe it comes from the book itself. And I am also excited. Clay and I are going to write a children's book together, and I want to launch that and help him become a #1 best-selling author, which is really just kind of cool, fun side project. And I'm really excited to step into the big girl shoes of consulting. I mean, I have been doing this for over a decade, but really deciding that, or rather understanding how my mind works and how people can use that, take advantage of it. I mean, I welcome anybody to take advantage of it, to really quickly map out a more aligned business model. Because honestly, I talk to people all day long and they're so out of alignment in their business. They're creating offers that they don't even want to fulfill. They hate marketing and everything is hard. It is not supposed to be that way. It's because you are creating strategies that are completely out of alignment with your core values and your why and who you really ultimately want to work with. I mean, the online world is full of smoke and mirrors, and it has completely swallowed you whole. So my work coming out now is really in helping people get realigned with themselves to quickly inform a much simpler business strategy that is going to work for you in a much more magical way. So more of all of these things. I mean, I just feel as I step into my 40s, I feel in alignment and I feel expansive, and I want everybody to come on this journey with me, and let's do it together. I think when you are speaking with somebody that you are aligned with, you don't have to have a rigid follow-up and nurturing process, right? Imagine that friend where it's like you haven't talked in 3 years, but you finally connect, and it's like you just got off the phone with them yesterday, right? It's like you just have that magical connection where it's like you're always so happy to hear from one another, and you're always in a flow state when you connect, but you don't have to be like best friends talking all the time. I think that that is an indication of somebody that you want in your network, right? But if it ever becomes hard work, or if they get grouchy because you haven't followed up or shown up in a certain way, then that's an indication that you're probably out of alignment with that relationship, right? Part of it is just believing in abundance. The right people will always continue to pour in my direction as long as I am showing up consistently and doing my best work in the world. So number one just comes down to kind of like the right type of person. But number two is I do think it's important to have just a regular enough touch point. So sometimes for me, it could look like just sending a quick text message to somebody saying, thinking of you with like a little emoji. And that's enough to nurture it and maintain it and keep it alive. There are other relationships, like for example, next month I'll be flying into Austin, and I'm doing that very specifically because there are 3 relationships that I really want to nurture at this moment. And I really just want to spend one-on-one time with them. And so I will make that time investment in the relationship. And then there are people that do that with me. In fact, just recently I had somebody who's trying to become almost a strategic partner with NGNG. He literally just flew out to Denver to sit down and have lunch with me at the airport. And then he flew back out. Like that was the whole purpose, is he just wanted a couple of hours of FaceTime. And so that spoke volumes to me about how he was viewing the relationship. I think it's also an indication of the amount of follow-up that you do to keep things happening, right? So for example, if there is somebody that I really want to be in close relationship with, just recently, I wanted to be a strategic partner of somebody else. And so I had one conversation with them, and following the call, I texted that person and said, I'm flying to Austin. I'll be at your event next week. Now that is really showing something, right? So I know I'm kind of tackling this question from 2 angles, but how we show up, who we decide to align with, I think these are really important things to be thinking about in terms of just making sure you're keeping goodwill in the marketplace. Especially for my business, it's been largely word of mouth. So I don't have to rely on paid advertising and a lot of these other like direct mail. And it seems like everybody has such a hard time marketing, but I don't. I just, I'm a lover of people and I make people feel good and I follow up with the right people. And all of a sudden they just keep referring groves of people to us. I take care of the people that they refer to us. I send thank yous out so that they feel my presence. And it's just like this beautiful circulation where everybody wins.